Okay, we have, this year we've had the whole topic of God's big story. So we've been looking at stories. We've been looking at God's big story, the overarching story. At the beginning, we went through Exodus. We looked at God's story in Exodus. Then we've been in Mark. We've looked at Jesus' story. We've looked at what he did. Then we had a little 4-week period of looking at heroes and villains, some of those heroes and villains in the Bible, and the stories of those. And then we're now on to history makers. So we're looking at people that made history, and we're going to be spending a bit of time looking at the early church and looking at the letter of Philippians. So that's what we're going to be doing up until Christmas, just hanging out in those kind of early church days and seeing what exactly was going on. And so today we're going to be looking at Acts 2, 42, and everything that the early church did and what they spent their time doing together. So, first of all, I just thought it'd be really good to think about community, okay? So, the early church, they were a community. I remember, I've got a flicker, so I can do some. So, what is community? There are so many different communities, aren't there? First of all, what is community? Community is a group of people living in the same place or having similar characteristics or sharing interests and attitudes. So that could be your family, could be a community where you are together or you have similar interests and attitudes. It could be, there's your church, this family here. This is our church community, a community together. But then there's your work communities that you'll be in, your college communities, your school communities. There are loads and loads of, you might have a fitness community that you go to. You might be doing line dancing and you go to that community. There are so many different types of community that you can be part of. But communities are where you share life together. So I think that sometimes when we talk about community, there may be several reactions to that in this room. You may think, I don't really like the word community. I don't like community. You might really like being on your own, and what community just freaks you out. You think, I don't know if I like community much. You might really love community. Think, oh yeah, we love it. We love all being together. Everybody has kind of a different response to that word. My response, when my mum was a teenager, her parents got very, very radically became Christians. And I say radically because they became Christians, gave up everything they had and came and lived down in the old rectory in, is it Clapham? Where is it? Clapham. And just 20 minutes down the road from here, they had a house where they all pooled their money together. So nobody had their own money. They all put it in a pot together. And some people worked in the kitchen. So my grandma worked in the kitchen. She did all the food. My grandpa worked on the land, and he did that sort of thing. There were evangelists who went out into the school. There were different people that did different things, and they all lived in community. They all lived together. They shared everything they had, and they lived shared lives together in community. So that happened when my mum was about 15 or 16. And then she grew up. My grandma would always talk about those days as the best days of her life. She loved living in that place, in community. And so when I was born and community was talked about really quite a lot. And the essence of community and the essence of sharing your life together. And though we didn't live all together, I remember when the church was planted, this church here was planted into Rustington Village Hall, just 30 people. Remember that my dad said, and my grandpa said, I don't know that we'll be able to all live in one house, but why don't we live close to each other? Why don't we live as close as we can to each other? Which is why, over the years, My mum and dad live in Jubilee Avenue in Rustington. So many people have lived in Jubilee Avenue. There was like a culture of Conbar Avenue, Jubilee Avenue, Worthing Road. Live close together because we want to share our lives together. We don't just believe in church, go to church and come back. We believe in shared life together. That's why we chose to live close to each other. Well, I didn't. I was only 2. But so that's the essence of shared life. Now, community for me too has been. I would say what connects me to God is definitely worship, definitely nature, and community. Community, it doesn't let you rest. There's always something aggravating you in a community, isn't there? There's always something going on that you can't just stand still in a community. You have to kind of like respond and react, and there's things that go on in a community. I always will be so enormously grateful to this church community but for the time when Rosie got married. Rosie and Mikey got married, and we were in this beautiful house, and we wanted to have an outdoor wedding, and it rained. And we had the whole marquee set up with all of the names for all of the guests that were coming. And it was like, 250 people all set up already. And my community in that place of... what shall I do? What shall we... dismantled the whole thing. And I'll never forget Jill Bruford with her eye for detail took every one of those name tags, and she made sure that everyone came off and back in the same place. It was remarkable what happened. I was so grateful for community that day. So grateful for people that just said, we're going to help you. We're going to stand by you. So community is such an important word for me. Okay, what's the culture? What is the culture of our community? What do we like? So what does culture actually mean? The culture is the ideas, the customs, and the social behaviours of a group of people. So we here in this church community have got a culture. And it is our ideas, our customs, our social behaviour, the things that we do together. It says, this guy says, your culture is a combination of what you create and what you allow. So here we have a culture in this place of what we create together and what we allow. Now, I wonder what you would say if I said, what's our culture like? What are we like as a church? What's our church culture like? So, we may say, well, we have a very open culture, or you may feel it's very closed. You may feel it's very friendly. You may feel it's not friendly at all. You may feel that the culture is, that we're good at conflict, or you may think we avoid conflict at all costs. There are different things that are in our culture that we can look at. I found it really fascinating because we did this with our staff and looked at our culture. We said, what are some of the downsides of our culture in the staff team, really? And this is 60 of us. There's 60 in the staff team. It's all the play centre guys and everyone. And one of the things that came up was we are sometimes divided or cliquey. So that was coming through in our culture. I found this really fascinating. I wonder if you can stand up right now, if you have ever felt left out in any way. Just stand to your feet if you've ever felt that in your life. If you can't stand up, put your hand up. Anyone ever felt left out? Okay, have a look around you, everybody. Have a look around you at who has felt left out in their life. Okay, I want you to keep standing. If you have ever felt in intense or acute pain, emotionally or physically, keep standing. Look around you, everybody. Look at the people that have felt emotional and acute physical pain around you. Okay, keep standing. If you've ever been affected by cancer in any way, by somebody close to you, or somebody that you know very well? Anyone affected by cancer? Okay, look around you, everybody. Isn't it amazing the things and the feelings that we share? Sometimes we think we're so alone in that we are left out. But do you know what? Everyone feels left out. Everyone. Everyone in this room has experienced the pain of feeling left out. Well, there was a few people that sat down, but they will feel left out now because they didn't stand up. So what about the pain sometimes that we feel emotionally and spiritually? You can sit down if you want to. The pain that we feel emotionally and spiritually, emotionally and physically. Do you know what? Everyone's felt that. Don't you think that's fascinating? Because often the lie is that you're on your own, that you are in a culture where nobody understands that. But actually everyone has experienced that. And so it's really, really good to look at our culture. Okay, what do you think our culture is really like? I'm going to also read the culture of the early church. So if you want to follow with me, it's Acts 2:42. So, and that will come up on here as well. What was the culture of the early church community? Here we go. When I think about our culture here, I think, do we have a kingdom culture? Are we a group of Christians that gather together? Or have we got that kingdom culture running through our veins? What is our culture and what do we want it to be like? So I'm going to read Acts 2:42 and we're going to think about the community and what the culture was in this community in Acts. It says this: they devoted themselves. What's happened is Jesus has died, he's been risen again, there's been Pentecost, 3,000 people have become Christians in Jerusalem. Not all of them would have stayed in Jerusalem because some of them would have gone back to because it was a festival, some of them would have gone back to their homes. But there would have been a lot of Christians in Jerusalem. And it says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe and the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and they ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. So we have the early church here. What were they really thinking about, the early church? They were completely devoting themselves to all of these things, which we're going to have a look at. But the thing that the early church did also was that we will see the pattern of they met in the temple, so that was a bigger place, and then they met in their homes. So that was a smaller place. So they had a big gathering where they would meet all together, and that would be different to the smaller gathering where they would meet in each other's homes, and it would be different. So that's one of the things that definitely was part of the culture of the early church. Another thing that was part of the culture was that the community here, the early church community, was so infectious, was so beautiful that it poured into their community outside. That's what was going on. That's what was happening. So if we look at the word, let's have a look at the word devoted. They devoted themselves. Devoted means to give all or most of someone's time or resources to a person or activity. That's what devoted means. To be completely devoted to something, you give it time, maybe all of it or most of it, to someone or to an activity. Do you remember on Greece, there is Hopelessly Devoted to You, that song? Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Well, anyway, when I was a young girl, I loved that, hopelessly, and I think I wrote it to Tim, hopelessly devoted to you. And do you think I did, Tim? Maybe. Well, anyway, I even bought the nightie that Sandy would have worn in that film, just because I thought it was so romantic and beautiful. She was hopelessly devoted, wasn't she? And so devotion is just such a strong word. What are we devoted to? Which is a really, really good thing to ask. The early church was devoted, everybody, it says, to teaching, to share, which was the apostles' teaching, to sharing life together, which was fellowship, to breaking bread, and to prayer. Okay, so I find this incredibly challenging. When I start to think about what they were devoted to, and then I think, what's our culture like? Okay, so we're going to go through a few things and look at our culture and look at what they were completely devoted to and maybe some of the things that we are. So, first of all, they were devoted to the apostles' teaching. All right, when you look at the apostles' teaching, they taught in many, many different ways. First of all, the apostles were all of the people that had been with Jesus, and Paul as well, who hadn't actually met Jesus, but all of the apostles were the disciples of Jesus, and the teaching was telling them all about what had happened, all about Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. That's what they were talking about. That's what the apostles' teaching was about. It was all about what had happened. They were very, very connected to Jesus and what had been going on. And so they were talking wherever they went. I just want to say, they were not devoted to good teaching. Okay, do you know what? Paul, on 3 occasions, who is one of the most held up apostles, is told that he's a bad preacher. 3 times. Can you imagine that? You know, it was 3 times they said he's unimpressive in his speaking. And so we're not talking about somebody who knew how to give a great talk. They were devoted to something more. Those apostles, they were living it. It wasn't all about how great it was that they were living that, and that's what the apostles were doing. So they were devoted to teaching, but it wouldn't have just been like, I'm teaching now. So they were devoted to, Jesus told stories, that's how he taught. Stories are really important. Peter has just done a massive big preach just before this, and they did preach, and they did get up like I am today, you know, and kind of like go for it and preach and all of that kind of stuff. They did do that. But also there are there are often words that, let me find the words. I'm not very good at remembering like this, the actual words that were used, and I reckon I won't be able to do it now, but one of the words for teaching is called dialegoma, which is one of the words that is used in our English language to talk about dialogue. So they dialogued together. Teaching wasn't just up front, it was a conversation that people had. They were all involved in talking together about what was going on. So what's our culture? Is our culture one that we are absolutely devoted to teaching? I wrote down some things and I thought, I'm going to write down what I think it would look like if our culture was completely devoted to that. And just ask the question as I'm reading it, do you think that's what we're like as a culture? And not as a person, not you personally, but do you think that's what we're like as our community? Do you think we have a culture as a church community completely committed to learning together? We take every chance we get to learn about the Bible and what it means for us today. We love to have open and honest discussions about all Jesus taught. We will never stop growing or learning and are devoted to this. Just have a bit of a think. Do you think that we as a culture have that running through our veins? Okay, what about fellowship? Fellowship was sharing life together. Fellowship was they had very deep relationships together. Do you think we could say this of ourselves? We have a culture as a church community where we are completely committed to sharing our lives together. We have open, deep, accountable, meaningful relationships with each other. We understand how to listen, we support and are supported. We are known for sharing our lives together. Do you think that that's something we could say for us? Bits of that? All of that? Just have a think. Do you think that's what describes us? What about, it says that the early church were completely committed and devoted to breaking bread together and to communion. Of course, that was really important because it kept them remembering that Jesus was the center all the time. Do you think that we could say of us, we have a culture as a church community, completely committed to keeping Jesus at the center of our lives? We remind ourselves of this as often as we can by taking bread and wine, both at home and as the gathered church. We are completely grateful and understand the complete sacrifice Jesus made. Do you think that's the culture that we have here? Is that what's running through our veins? Are we devoted to those things? Okay, what about a culture of prayer? It says that the early church were devoted to prayer. Could we say this about us? We have a culture as a church community and are completely committed and make prayer a priority. If there is any opportunity to pray as a church or in a group or for anyone in need, we take it. We know prayer changes everything. It is the boiler room, the linchpin of our church community. Could we say that about us? Is that what our culture is? Would you say, yeah, our culture is that we pray all the time? Is that what we're like? Okay, there's lots of other things that they were going for in the early church. There were miraculous signs. They were seeing that all the time. They put all their money together and they shared everything. Nobody was in need. It says that they had glad and sincere hearts. It says so many things. So I'm just going to read. Is this what we have here? So we have a culture in our church community and are familiar with the miraculous and see people healed, restored, and made whole. We pray for healing whenever we find someone who needs healing. We're together in everything, including our finances. We don't hold on to our stuff and give to others and everyone in need. We meet together every day. We break bread in our homes. We eat together any chance we get. We have a culture in our church community and are known for gratefulness. Do you think this is us? We are happy with sincere hearts. Our hearts are always open to praise our God. Gratefulness runs through our veins and we are overwhelmed with the goodness of God in our lives. Is that what we are as a church? Is that our culture? Do we have gratefulness running through our veins? Do we have a culture? We have a culture in our church community where people are finding Jesus every day. We enjoy the favor of our local community. So vibrant is the thankfulness, the passion through prayer and worship. Our lives live together, overcoming our differences, placing others before us. And total devotion to God and each other, that it spills into our community. Everyone notices. Do you think we have that culture here? Well, I don't know about you, but I find it really challenging. Because when I read that, when I looked at that, I'm like, what culture do we have here? What is our who's responsible? Who is responsible too for our culture? You know, who sets the culture? And you know, I think the culture is us. We make it. We are it. We set the culture. You could say to me, Becca, well, you're the leader, so it's up to you, isn't it? Well, in one way, you're completely right, and the leadership team, it is up to us to set culture, but we can't do that on our own. It's impossible. It's a bit like, can you imagine saying, as a family, we are going to be walkers. We are going to walk mountains. And saying that, and you and your whoever goes up the mountains, and you say to your children, we're going to have a culture of mountain climbing. And your children say, no, we're not coming. No way. Do you think you can have a culture as a family of mountain climbing if your children won't climb? You can't. We are together what makes our culture. Not me, not just you, all of us together make our culture. We are the shapers of culture, the workers for change, and we are the dreamers of dreams. And so, I don't want to bring like a heaviness to us today but I do want to say, what is our culture? And if it isn't full of the kingdom of God, well, what are we doing? You could say to me, well, Becca, that was the early church, right? The early church was, it was like the honeymoon period, wasn't it? It was like everybody was madly in love with God, and it was early, and it's just like falling in love again. It was, and maybe those principles don't apply to us today. But, I think they do. I don't think we can say that's outdated. Prayer, oh dear. Our culture's changed now. Seeing miraculous, those things are still true for us today. Learning, growing together, sharing our lives together. They're true for us now. It's not an outdated thing. And sometimes I think, and culture does change, and they were madly in love with God. And they had they were devoted to those things. And I was thinking, and I don't want to in any way suggest like we must do more and strive more and all those things. But I was thinking about the church in Revelation. And the church in Revelation, there was a letter written to that church in Revelation. And it said, you're really, really hardworking. You're really amazing and you work really hard, but you've lost your first love. Gosh, can you imagine somebody saying that to you as a church? You've lost your first love. That devotion, that love. When you first fall in love, do you remember how easy it is? How soft your heart is when you first fall in love? You're like, when I first fell in love with Tim, I didn't really like him at the beginning, but then after a while, I really did like him. And then I fell in love, and my heart was soft and open and free. And I couldn't wait to be with him. And I couldn't wait the minute he knocked on the door. I was so excited to see him. Where have we lost that first love when we come into the presence of God? Life is sometimes hard, and it makes us build walls, and it makes us cynical, and it makes us hard. But I want to have a love for God. I think that even in just your relationships, you have that first love, and that's amazing. But I remember over the time that Tim and I were married, he used to go away, and he often went away with the band. And I always cried when he left, and I was all soppy and soft-hearted. By the time he got back, I was independent, and I knew I'd run the house by myself. I'd done everything by myself. I was absolutely fine. And then he comes in with his jet lag and his washing, and I was doing all right. And then and we had to work to make sure that we stayed a team. We had to do deliberate things to make sure that we stayed a team. And so it is with God. And so it is with God. Sometimes we need to deliberately say, I will do this. I'm devoted to you. I'm devoted to you, God. And I will do this, or I would do deliberate things. You know, all those things that they were devoted to. Okay, breaking of bread, sharing lives, prayer and teaching, you know, learning together. Aren't they all things that bring us life? Do you know, it's not like some bad thing, like, you know, exercise is quite bad for me, but it's not really bad for me. I just feel like it is. But it's great things. These are great things that he invites us into as a culture. Amazing things. And so, you know, I just, maybe the band could come on up. That would be really brilliant. But just think, you know, God, we want to... Also, the other thing is, of course, that don't you want what happens in here? What happened in the early church was it affected their whole community. It was so vibrant. It was so amazing what was going on in their community. It just affected everyone. Wouldn't you love it? I think that is happening. Don't get me wrong. I think that there are pockets where that's happening, but we are the culture of the church. We're it. We set the culture. Don't you think sometimes they're not here today, but you know, Lynn and Neil, right? You know, Lynn and Neil, they don't have any leadership responsibility. They don't have any responsibility anywhere. But what happens when well, they probably do, don't they, with someone. But you know, when they're here, they set the culture, don't they? Don't you notice when Lynn and Neil aren't here? Because they set something in our culture. They say, we're going to go for it, no matter... So do you know what I mean? That you don't have to be a leader, or... They're just one example. There are loads of examples. But, like, what do we want? What do we want, church? What do we want together? Let's stand up, shall we? I suppose my first response for me is I feel like saying, I want to say sorry to God. Because I want to say, God, I really, really want to be a community that is devoted in every way to you. And any ways that I haven't done that or haven't led right or any ways that I've been a block to that, God, I'm sorry for those things. And Father, I pray that you would stir our hearts again, not in a way that we're striving, we have to do more and be more, but God, come and just meet with us right now, I pray. And you know if that fire, if that first love's gone, you know. And if that's you, then reach out to God again. If your faith has grown dull, just reach out to God where you are. God would say to you right now, whatever he would say. Some of us here just need to know that we are loved, completely and utterly loved. Some of us here, we need to make some deliberate acts, do deliberate things to make prayer part of our lives again, sharing together, Just listen to whatever he says to you.